Oh, hey, Vision. Okay, I'm excited about this new series, whether you're here in person or watch this on Facebook Live. I do believe God has got something for you these next 5 weeks. We talk about this concept of the life you always wanted. I mean, hopefully you hear that thing, man, that can help me. This series can move me forward toward the life I've always wanted. Because when you think about the life that you want, hopefully you get some images in your mind. Literally like pictures in your mind. Maybe it's pictures about relationships. Maybe you're a teenager or a college student. You're like, okay, I got pictures in my mind of on Instagram with dating that girl or dating that guy. Man, that's the life I've wanted. Or maybe you're an adult saying, I want a picture of a happy marriage, of a healthy marriage, of time with my kids, of like good quality time with my kids. Or maybe it's someone saying, I want a picture of getting married someday. Or it's a picture you're older saying with grandkids. You've got those pictures about relationships. Or maybe pictures about your career. Saying, I actually want to enjoy going to work. I want to look forward to my job. I want to make a difference. That's the picture in my mind. Maybe your picture, honestly, is of that house or that car or that thing where you said, when I can finally get that, I'll be happy. Or maybe it's retirement. Or maybe it's, like John said, just peace. So, man, that'd be the picture in my mind of actually not be stressed and tense. It'd be a picture of peace. Well, this series, we talk about pictures and the life you wanted. It ties in to our mission as a church. So if you let me, I'm actually going to really personalize our mission statement in this. That our mission here is to lead you to Christ. Is to lead you to Christ. In fact, you were just telling me this week about someone in your family coming to Christ. That it's about leading you to Christ and helping you live out God's vision for your life. So you think about that God has a vision for your life that is even better than the life you want. It's not necessarily different, it's just better. So we talk about this concept, and we're going to dig into a book, and this is so cool. Once a year, if you're new here at Vision, once a year we have a series where we give you a free book. One per household, that when you leave today in the lobby, you can pick up a copy for free of this book, The Life You've Always Wanted. And this book is on my personal top 10 list. One of my favorite books I have ever read. Make sure you take it with you, and you're like, Pastor Matt, we're already reading Proverbs. Okay, who's reading Proverbs? Who's reading Proverbs? I'm reading Proverbs. I am loving reading through Proverbs. If you remember last week, we had Wendell up here, and he's like 60-something years old. And Wendell, who's been around for years reading his Bible, was saying, man, God is teaching me out of Proverbs. And I said, me too. I've been walking with God for 25 years. He gave me something new on the first day of March in the first chapter of Proverbs. So make sure you're tracking with us through Proverbs. Whatever day of the month it is, you read that chapter. That's your time with God, okay? That's part of your time with God. Maybe this is your evening time. You say, man, I'm going to read a little bit in this book. I promise you'll enjoy it. Get into the first chapter this week, even first 2 chapters. You'll start pulling stories out of it that will inspire you to say, hey, there can be a better life. Truly, the life that I've always wanted is folded into God's vision for my life. That's where we're going with this series. Today, we're going part 1. We're calling it Transformers. And I know, Tabitha, who serves up here, her son Mario, he loves the Transformers. Okay, they couldn't even tell him too early in the week I was talking about Transformers because he would keep asking about it. Well, Pastor Matt going to talk about Transformers. I said, okay, Mario, just hang on. Hang on. There will not be any Decepticons here, okay? But he'll protect us if there are. Mario will do that. But you think about this concept of transformation. It's even better. Oh, I didn't even see Mario's in here. Mario, my man. Your fist bump from distance. Yes. That this concept of transformation is even better than just changing. Because what do you think when I say, is there anything in your life that you would like to transform? Anything about you, not just my spouse or my house or my job, but no, we're talking about us. Like personally inside us, is there anything that you would like to transform? So this concept of Transformers. Okay, so first of all, we got this image of Transformers. Let's look at these guys. Mario, did we do good on that? Good picture? Yes. Transformers. Okay. Now for the older set, like John, he remembers more of like the guy who would get into the phone booth and transform. Who is that? Superman. So Superman, boom, he'd transform. He'd be flying. Love it. Now, for any of you that have like road rage issues or get really mad at people, then maybe this next one is kind of your transformation, if we're being real, that, You go all Incredible Hulk on somebody, you're transforming. Okay? Now, how about, we think about even in the music set, any Michael Jackson fans in here? I still love MJ, dude. And, he sang about this. He talked about looking in the mirror. Remember, he said about make that change. That's about transformation. Now, this next one, before they put it up, though, I got to tell you, you guys undergo transformation sometimes daily. And it's hinged around something that you maybe are addicted to, and it's called coffee. And when I think about you, and maybe that's the transformation that you undergo daily, thankfully, because of coffee. Is that what Bill's saying about you? He's saying that. He's pointing at her. Indeed. Okay. Well, let me dig into this for a second. Our primary text always is God's Word. But for the series, we're also going to supplement this book. So let me give you a little taste of this. Start this thing off. This guy, John Ortberg, brilliant and just such a unique perspective about God. So again, you're going to get your copy when you leave today, one per household. But listen to this. He says, the goal of this book is to help us to grow spiritually. But it's hard to write about spiritual formation in a way that captures the urgency of the subject. And understand how he explains this urgency. He says, too often, people think about their spiritual lives as just one more aspect of their existence, alongside and largely separate from their financial lives, their vocational lives, their relationship lives. He says, in fact, though, periodically they may try to get their spiritual lives together by praying more regularly or trying to master another spiritual discipline. It is the religious equivalent of going on a diet or trying to stick to a budget. Honestly, we want more than that. We don't want just a slice. He says, the truth is that the term spiritual life is simply a way of referring to one's life. Every moment, every facet of it from God's perspective. Another way of saying it is this: God is not interested in your spiritual life. God's interested in your life. He is interested in the totality of who you are. This will help. So my challenge to you is you'll take one today, one per household. You'll read first chapter or two, and you'll be here. 5 Sundays in a row, you'll be here. So I talk about this, and we talk about spiritual disciplines. I get Kevin Collick up here in a couple weeks talking about this art of slowing down. I mean, does anybody hurry through life just a little bit too much? And Kevin's going to talk about that there's an art to slowing down that will help you get more on track with the life you've wanted. I'll unpack a couple more pieces. We'll culminate on Easter. We'll see what God teaches us through this. Now, if you got your takeaway card, we got the Bible app, pull it out. Because we're going to go ahead and take a look at our primary passage for today. It comes out of one of my favorite chapters in the Bible, Romans 12. We're going to look at these 2 verses. I'm going to read through them, and then we'll come back to them in a couple of minutes. But the Apostle Paul is a guy who knows about transformation. This is a guy who did far worse than anything you've ever done. Far worse than anything you'll ever do. Far worse than anything you ever thought about doing. He did it and then got to a point where he was giving his life for Christ. That's not just a change. That's not just an adjustment. That's not a 2-degree difference. That is a transformation. I say, how does that happen in a person? And how could it happen in us? So say transformation. Transformation has, I think, potential to it, an excitement to it, optimism to it, opportunity to it. Let's see what Paul writes about it. He says, therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Now, okay, did anybody enjoy Friday night, the night of worship? Oh, man, that was something. And Paul is saying, yes, we worship through song and through giving and through serving and through inviting. And life is bigger than that. That really your life is about worship. See what else he says? He says, don't conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed. Okay, that is our word for today, is transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. We're going to unpack this. We're going to take this and break it down into pieces to help you understand how you can experience transformation. Whether you're brand new in your walk, whether you've been walking with him for decades, or whether you came in today and said, man, I just, was at a friend's house last night and they brought me to church. I don't even know if I believe this, but man, I'd like to change. There's some things about me that I would like to change. If we're being real, if we're sitting like in a small group and I'm like, okay, Tim, let's really talk about what we need to change. Temper, maybe. Attitude, things I look at, things I let influence me, my impatience. Maybe at times I'm just rude, or I'm just so selfish, or you got a whole list of things you say, man, I'm glad Pastor Matt doesn't know all the things that need to change in my life. But God does, and he's not intimidated by that, and he's not mad about that. So what I want to do is, before we dig into those verses again, I'm going to bring up a couple visionaries. And if you saw the promo this week, that we got Stacy and Ashley Drake, and I've heard people talking this week, and they're excited. So welcome up, Stacy and Ashley Drake. Yes. All right. I love these guys. Got to spend some time with them the other night, and I'm so excited about, here you go, how God's going to speak through you. You guys grab a stool there. And if you guys haven't met the Drakes yet, they are a wonderful family. And in fact, we got a picture of them and their kids. Stacy, tell us who we got up there.
That's Stratton and Charlie.
Oh,
my daughters.
Beautiful. Does she always wear antlers, or is that just special?
That's just special.
Special. Gotcha. Do you ever wear antlers? Does he ever wear antlers?
Yeah.
He does.
He doesn't have hair. He grows antlers.
So let's dig in. I spent some great time talking with them one night this week, because I have seen transformation in their life. And to be fair, when we talk about transformation, we're talking about transforming. They have not arrived. I have not arrived. Transformation doesn't just stop, but we are being transformed. God is doing transforming. So let's talk about it. Let's start off with, what was your life like before Christ? So whoever wants to go first, tell us, life like before Christ.
Okay. Life before Christ for me. We grew up in a home where we kind of church hopped. We couldn't find which church fit right for our family. We started out in a Catholic church because my stepfather was Catholic, and that wasn't for us. And we went on and, never quite found that church home for us. I grew up in an alcoholic home. And so, we prayed every day. Anybody who's been to AA or knows about AA, everything is, based around, getting your spiritual life in check so you can, become sober and all of those things. So as a child, I, grew up in that home. And so I learned from a very early age how to deal with my emotions with anger. That's what I used. It became a security blanket for me. A lot of people know that I have Crohn's disease. And dealing with that as, a young child was really hard. I didn't get diagnosed until I was 16 or 14. Had my first major surgery at 16. Had a doctor look me dead square in the face and say, I don't think you're going to make it till tomorrow. It was very scary. I watched my parents, they were sober at the time then, lean on God. And for me, that's how I knew what the foundations were, because I was given those foundations as a young child. I just chose not to go that way. I went on to a very abusive relationship when I was young, right out of college. And it was awful. More anger. It's how I dealt with everything. If I was happy, I was angry. If I was sad, I was angry. Anything that happened, I was hostile. And I know that looks funny. You look at Stacy, you think, oh, that's the hostile person, not Ashley. No, it's completely opposite. I look nice, I bite. He looks very angry, he's very loving. So it was completely different. And we get that a lot because they're like, oh, no, you don't seem that way. But I was, when I was younger, I had to take care of my brother and sister because my parents were either, when they were alcoholics and they drank all the time, they weren't there. Or when they were at meetings, then it fell on me to take care of my brother and sister. And I don't regret any of that because it taught me how to be a mother. And, we weren't supposed to have kids. With my disease, I was told we would never have children. And we have two beautiful kids that, are miracles that they're here. So before Christ, it was very dark for me. Very, very, very angry all the time.
Okay. Stacey, how about you? Tell us about your background.
I grew up in church when I was little, but I kind of got away from it when I was early teens. I started messing with drugs, and let them take over for a good 8 to 10 years of my life. I finally got clean with some help from my mom and some friends out of South Carolina, and the good Lord got me clean. I'll be clean 11 years in July.
All right. Anything else about?
If you don't believe that God can change you, then you're looking at somebody that has been changed by God, so you believe that He's real.
Wow. Now, we get into talking about how you have experienced transformation, how He's transforming you. Let's pull up the picture from last year, and we'll see he's got baptized right here in this room, in this church. And you talk about transformation, God's doing it in them. He is transforming them. So why don't you tell us, what's He doing in your life? What's transforming?
Well, when we had our children, we knew we needed to find a church. And so we said, let's put out our lookers. Where are we going? My sister-in-law, Kat and Yanni, invited us to Vision Church. And I'm forever thankful for that invite. We walked through the door, and it was, I believe it was in April that we came, right around Easter. And they were posting pictures about camp, hey, camp's coming up. And they were showing pictures of the year previous. And I remember us looking at each other and kind of nudging each other like, we want our kids to be there. We want our kids to experience that at Vision Church. And so we were like, this is it. We knew. We went home that day. We were like, we are going to be at Vision Church. And we haven't missed a Sunday unless we've been sick or out of town. We absolutely love it. It's the transformation for us. When we came through, we knew that, we wanted to get baptized. We wanted our kids. He had already been previously baptized. I had as a very young child, but we knew that at that moment, that was a new chapter for us. And we wanted to commemorate that by getting baptized. And so we did, and our pictures are hanging up in our house so our kids can see it. Like, it's something that we're very proud of. And so that transformation began then. It was almost like that wall of anger for me just started to break. It started to crumble, but in a very good way.
Stacey, how about you? As we see it, man, we see you transforming. What do you see in yourself?
Since I've been coming to Vision, yes, I have seen a big change where I used to cuss like a sailor. Now it slips out every now and then.
It's okay. That's okay.
And it's been helping with my anger because of all the great guys that's here. If you need somebody, they're there for you, which is I've never had before. So it's great.
It's been so neat to see that men now are approaching him to talk about life issues. He'll call me sometimes and say, hey, Pastor Matt, so-and-so's wrestling with something. What do I tell him? And I give him a little counsel, but I let him do it. I mean, he's a minister to men. He leads our moving ministry. He does that. And guys just gravitate toward him because they see God doing something in his life. So my last question for you guys then is, what do you say to somebody who's sitting here saying, man, I can't be transformed. Man, there's something I can't get past. I can't change that. Or should I even want to be transformed? What would you say to them?
Well, two things. One is we are living, breathing proof that transformation happens through Christ. Absolutely, 100%. And second of all, I would say that what are you going to lose by trying it out? I mean, for me, I was you. I get it. The doubting, but it's the best bet and the safest bet that you're ever going to make.
Yeah, man. Stacey, what would you tell him?
She pretty much covered it all right there.
That's great. That's a wise husband right there. Well done. All right. We guys thank Stacey and Ashley for sharing. And you guys can put your mics right there. Thanks, guys. So think again about that question. I mean, is there something about you that God wants to transform? And again, not those little things, those things about I want a car or I want a different. No, in you. And when you sit and look in that mirror and say, truly, God, could you change me? Could you do something in me? Because I don't want to deal with that anymore, that issue anymore. Something in me, could you change me? Well, think about this concept, that the depth of your transformation is directly related to the cost of transformation. As I spent time thinking about this week, it dawned on me that the depth of your transformation is directly tied into the cost of your transformation. Let me explain that. Let's say you got a friend who's malnourished, who's unhealthy, they're weak, they're sickly. You say, okay, we're going to try to get a transformation in them. Bring them over to your house. Let's get them a shower. Let's clean up their hair. Let's cut it. Let's put some nice clothes on them. Let's put them in a nice car and say, okay, look at them right now. They're sitting in that car. They're clean. They're looking good. How are you feeling? And they say, honestly, I feel sick. I feel malnourished. I feel terrible. Say, okay, wait a second. We want a depth of transformation. This is going to take some time. Let's evaluate your diet. Let's get you the right foods. Let's get you on nutrients. This is going to take days and weeks. Let's get you on an exercise plan. Let's start something with your muscles. There's got to be a cost to that transformation if you want it truly to be a deep transformation. So if you're sitting there thinking, Matt, if you just knew what I need to be transformed from. If you knew the things I look at on the computer. Matt, if you know the things I'm thinking about. Matt, if you knew how I yell at people in my house, and you think I'm all smiling nice, but in my house, I yell at people. I hate that I do that. Matt, God can't do that. If you need a deep transformation, there's going to be a cost to get there. You don't just pick up a book and start reading and say, oh, man, I'm changed. Man, I just feel better about myself now. That's a start, but there's a depth to it and a cost to it. And we're willing to go there with you as a church if you truly want to be transformed. So, what is transformation? And how do I get transformed? Let's look back at what Paul said. In verse 1, he says, therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. First piece, mercy. Mercy. Okay, so say mercy. Mercy. You know, mercy is a strange term because to even think about mercy, you have to get in a humble position first. You have to be in a spot where you realize that something is due you, like a punishment or a penalty, and you have to be willing to say, would you not give me that? Literally, with God, when you picture God as sitting on what we would call a mercy seat, that you would approach him and say, God, I have got something I need to be transformed from. God, I'm too embarrassed to talk about it with anybody, but I'm going to try talking about it with you if this is a safe place. If you truly care about me, then I'm going to offer this up to you. Would you, in your mercy, even just talk to me? Even just help me start making a change of direction with this. I need a transformation. I need your mercy. That's where it starts. The second word is sacrifice. So say sacrifice. Yeah, sacrifice also is like one of these, oh man, I don't want to sacrifice. I want my stuff, or I want it my way, or I want to do things that I like doing. But what Paul's talking about here is that you have to give up something to get something. That there's a cost of transformation if you want a depth to the transformation. The sacrifice he's talking about in here ties into the next word, worship. So say worship. And understand, worship is not 4 songs on Sunday, or just listening to something in your car, or just doing something that's just clicking things off saying, I'm worshiping. Worship is a lifestyle. All those other pieces are part of worship, but worship is your life. Remember what I read? Your spiritual life isn't a slice that happens on Sunday, or happens in 10 minutes in the morning with God, or happens when you watch a video about Billy Graham that makes you feel good. Your spiritual life is everything. And we say, God, I'm going to give my life to you as worship, that literally, God, on my list of things that are important, you are number 1. You are worth that. So I will worship you. That's my sacrifice. And I tithe it in, God, to your mercy. And I say, please do a transformation in me. And God smiles at you and says, now we're making progress. When you have that mentality and you have that willingness, you get to that spot where you want your life to be worship, it takes you into verse 2, where it says, don't conform to the pattern of this world. So say pattern. Would you agree with me that there's some type of pattern to this world? And honestly, it's based on the fact that I should be number 1. I should get what I want. I should have on demand. I should have things my way. There's a pattern to this world. Paul's saying, wait a second, don't conform to that pattern. But instead, be transformed. So say transformed. This is our word again. He's saying, no, don't conform, but instead be transformed. And I say, how? How do I do that? It says it starts with your mind. By the renewing of your mind. You know, we talk often in here about how we change our thoughts, that leads to changing our actions. We change our actions, that ends up changing our outcomes. And you know, if we get better outcomes, we're going to have a more successful life. So when you think about the life you've always wanted, that means happy outcomes, that means change behaviors, that starts with your mind, with your thoughts. So he says, by the renewing your mind, then there's like this bonus to it. Then you're going to be able to test and approve of what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. Now understand, this word approve, this doesn't mean that you get the choice to say, well, God, I approve of that and I disapprove of that. That's not what Paul's talking about. Paul is talking about you trying to figure out what is God's will. Like literally, when you're on your computer and you're trying to fill out a form and it gives you like the red X and you fill it in right and you get the green check, it approves of what you're doing. It's telling you that is correct. That's right. So here's our words for the second half of this verse, for verse 2. Pattern. So again, say pattern. Okay, I've got patterns in my life. You got patterns in your life. And in general, I think we like our patterns, except times when they lead us to things we say, oh man, I don't like that outcome. And if we're really thinking hard about it, we'd work it backwards and say, I need to change that pattern. I change that pattern, I'm going to change that outcome. So this pattern, Paul says, is that the world's got a pattern. It's trying to squeeze you into, don't do that. That leads to number 5, conform or transform. So say conform. Say transform. I like think about this like a fish trying to swim against the flow. That is not easy. That's us in this life going against a flow that's going somewhere we don't want to go. A flow that God is saying, don't go there. I know how that ends. It's not the life you've always wanted. And Paul, remember at the start of the verse, he said, I'm urging you guys, I'm urging you to get this. Don't conform, but instead transform, like that fish that would actually turn around and swim against the flow because it knows that it is worth it to not conform. And number 6, test and approve God's will. So say test and approve. So again, this is not us saying, okay, God, I'm gonna test it so I can decide what's right. And I'm going to test it to try to figure out what is God's best. That God has a vision for my life, I want to figure it out. I'm going to test these different things, say, God, which one? This totally ties into Proverbs, Bill. Well, we're going through Proverbs this month, and wisdom, we're looking out there saying, okay, there's all these different options. How do I figure it out? Well, you lay down a test. Is this godly? Is this what God wants? Is this in his word? Is this right? I'm steering away from that. This is the green check. This is the way to go. If I truly test and approve and say, that's God's will, it will help me to transform. Now, this transformation, it's got great potential with it. It gives us a chance to be different. This world needs people that are different. And I promise you, as we continue to grow as a church full of people that are different, it will attract people saying, what's going on over there? We've got a guest here today who has already been saying, there are so many happy people here. I didn't know there's this many happy people in Gaston County. I love the sound of that. Vision Church, we're winning if we're hearing that. When you are being transformed, you are different. So think about this bottom line. That we got a choice to conform to the world or to be transformed by God. To conform and say, okay, I'm just going to go that pattern. God says, no, man, let me transform you into a different pattern. It will lead to the life you've always wanted. God promises that. But I got to give you a warning. There is a struggle. If you truly want depth of transformation, there is a struggle. Don't get mad at God for the struggle. What we need to do, if we're going to be wise and mature, and that's what we're reading in Proverbs, right? It said, you want to be wise, you want to be mature and discerning. Well, understand that the struggle has value. Now, we got any fans here of Lost? That still is like one of my all-time favorite shows. So I naturally cycle back to John Locke and Charlie talking about the struggle. Check this out. In the New Testament, there's a guy named John. This guy, John, he had this struggle. He wrestled with this. In John chapter 3, in fact, he says something, it's one of my favorite verses, but it's so simple. In speaking about Jesus, he says, Jesus must increase and I must decrease. He must become greater, I must become less. What I think John is talking about in that is the fact that all of us have kind of like this meter, if you will, of 100% ownership. Somebody's got ownership of us. Before Christ, honestly, it's 0 Jesus and 100 me. Would you agree with that? Before knowing Christ, Jesus 0, me 100. When I became a Christian, it started shifting. If you said it did this, you're lying. Okay, you're lying. You did not instantly give Jesus 100 and Matt 0. If we're being real, most days it's something like this or like this. Honestly, on some bad days, it's a lot of Matt and not much Jesus. But John is saying, let's get transformed. Let's let the transforming, even the struggle, move it to where Jesus has more and Matt has less, so that the goal is that we would be different than the world that's like this. Because when they see somebody different that has Jesus more and you less, they say, what's going on in that life? What is different about that person? How is that light shining through you? I see something in you. John says that's how it goes. That he would increase and I would decrease. So I want you to think about being different and what that would look like in your life.